Welcome to Study Session 10, Indigenous Knowledge Systems, ICT and Weather. The application of modern ICT to the direct exchange of indigenous knowledge within and between communities in Africa is still not common. The inability to use or employ ICTs to record, store, process most of the African indigenous knowledge systems is a major setback in the implementation or application of AIKS. The lack of modern tools to transfer and exchange AIKS has made the dissemination of information on AIK very slow. However, if embraced, modern ICT could become a powerful enabler for the exchange of indigenous knowledge among African communities. In this study, you will learn about the role of ICT, whether in indigenous knowledge systems, and the problems of indigenous knowledge systems. Learning outcomes. At the end of this study, you should be able to 1. Explain the role of ICT in indigenous knowledge systems. 2. Discuss the role of indigenous knowledge in weather forecasting. 3. Identify the problems of indigenous knowledge systems. Role of ICT in indigenous knowledge systems. In 1995, the South African Parliament introduced indigenous knowledge as a critical component of South Africa's science and technology system. A pilot project was undertaken to identify indigenous technologies. The use of modern ICT is still the exception rather than the rule in the direct exchange of indigenous knowledge within and between communities. As countries establish connectivity, modern ICT could become a powerful enabler for the exchange of IK. In the near future, however, more traditional and appropriate tools for dissemination could be used to facilitate the transfer and exchange of IK. The following represents the kind of tools that could be used depending on the local circumstances and the degree of access and connectivity of a country and a community. Video and radio broadcasts in local languages could disseminate IK practices using storytelling techniques, especially in the rural areas. Telecenters could help make knowledge flow from the local communities outward and from the global community inward. Telecenters are being introduced in several countries in Africa. Electronic networking will be most appropriate to establish exchanges among civil society groups and to link the various existing local IK centers in various countries. External support to build local capacity, including the dissemination of such tools among local communities, could facilitate the process of IK exchange. Indigenous knowledge in weather forecasting. Local communities and farmers in Africa have developed intricate systems of gathering, predicting, interpreting, and decision-making in relation to weather. A study in Nigeria, for example, shows that farmers are able to use knowledge of weather systems such as rainfall, thunderstorms, windstorms, harmattan, and sunshine to prepare for future weather. Indigenous methods of weather forecasting are known to complement farmers' planning activities in Nigeria. A similar study in Burkina Faso showed that farmers' forecasting knowledge encompasses shared and selective experiences. Elderly male farmers formulate hypotheses about seasonal rainfall by observing natural phenomena, while cultural and ritual specialists draw predictions from divination, visions, or dreams. The most widely relied upon indicators are the timing, intensity, and duration of cold temperatures during the early part of the dry season, November to January. Other forecasting indicators include the timing of fruiting by certain local trees, the water level in streams and ponds, and the nesting behavior in rubbish heap outside compound walls. Problems of indigenous knowledge systems. Indigenous people and their knowledge systems have been marginalized mainly because of the craze for modernity and globalization. The distinct culture of indigenous people and their identity, their economic activities, religious beliefs, notions and traditional ways of managing natural resources are often regarded as backward and superstitious. They are considered to be absolutely incompatible with modern society and development. The oral and rural nature of IKS in Africa has made them largely invisible to the development community and global science. Indigenous knowledge has often been dismissed as unsystematic and incapable of meeting rapid economic growth needs of modern world. Historically, modern societies have regarded indigenous people and tradition as less progressive, and as a result, many groups of indigenous peoples, especially their younger generation, are influenced to devalue their native cultures and to adopt new lifestyle and technologies. Consequently, IKS have not to a long extent been captured and stored in a systematic way and are therefore endangered with extinction. The lust for modernity and new technologies are threatening the loss of a great store of knowledge held by native people. A good number of indigenous groups in Africa and elsewhere in the world have suffered from long-term discrimination, inequity, and exclusion from planning and execution of development programs and projects. The main reason for IK not being captured and stored in a systematic way is that it is handed down orally from generation to generation. Some indigenous knowledge cannot be codified and recorded, and hence cannot be exchanged across communities and cultures. Even some IK being unique to and part of a particular culture of a people, transferring it would render it irrelevant, inappropriate, and even harmful. Summary of study session. In this study, you have learned that 1. ICT tools that can be used to facilitate the transfer and exchange of indigenous knowledge among African communities. These include video and radio broadcasts in local languages, telecenters, and electronic networking. 2. IK can be used in weather forecasting. 3. Indigenous methods of weather forecasting are known to complement farmers' planning activities in Nigeria. 4. Indigenous people and their knowledge systems have been marginalized mainly because of the craze for modernity and globalization. 5. The main reason for IK not being captured and stored in a systematic way is that it is handed down orally from generation to generation. This is the end of study session 10. Thank you.